Hi there, this is Monica from the Stitchery, and today we're learning how to do the Kitchener stitch. So the Kitchener stitch is very often used to close up the toe end of socks. So when you're all done and you're wondering how to close the toes so that they look very nice and that there's no seam, we use the Kitchener stitch. Now, there's a lot of hesitancy to learn the Kitchener stitch because people say it's really difficult and it's hard to remember, etc., etc. So what I have is a handy little keychain, which I got from Burning Impressions here in Canada, and it tells you what the setup is and then what the stitches are, which repeat just every 2 rows until you're done. So it's super easy to do, especially if you have a little cheat sheet like this. So you don't necessarily need one of these, although they're really nice to have because you can just clip it right onto your project bag and then you're never leaving home without it. So let's get started. What we do need for supplies is, of course, we need something that we're going to sew up in Kitchener stitch. So I have a sock that I'm finished. This is the zigzagular sock. It's a bit hard to see until it's blocked, but that's the pattern that comes down. And that pattern can be found on Ravelry if you're interested in making the zigzagular sock. And this is opal yarn. It's in the Safari Tunisian colorway. So what we will do is we'll get started on the Kitchener stitch right away. Now, first thing we need to do is cut off some yarn. You no longer need it attached to your ball. I say a good 12 inches is more than enough. So you need enough to do the Kitchener stitch itself, and then also to just sew your ends in so it doesn't undo, obviously. So in terms of needles, you can use either a stainless steel embroidery needle or tapestry needle, or you can use one of these little aluminum needles that has a little plastic loop on the end. This is almost like fishing twine. So I prefer these because they don't break very easily. Some of you may have tried using the plastic ones. Those break very easily, especially if you have some tighter stitches to work through, not in Kitchener, but in sewing up ends. And then because this little end squishes down, you don't have to worry about if you do have a tight space, it'll just squish down and go through it. Also, because it's fat, until you squish it down, it's really easy to get your yarn through. So if you're starting to get to the needing reading glasses point, etc., or have just always been two left thumbs for trying to thread a needle, then this thing is a great friend. And I honestly just buy these at Walmart. I haven't found them cheaper anywhere else, so I just get, I think it's a 4-pack at Walmart. So let's get started. So we'll just thread the needle, super easy, like I said, on these. And then I'm going to put the instructions right here so I can remind myself and so you can follow along at home at the same time. I'll try not to cover them up too much if possible. So you're going to start with the remainder of your stitches spread across 2 of your needles, or if you're using the Chiagu shorties, for example, you might have a bit of a loop left over on this side, but as long as you have your stitches split in half over 2 needles or 2 points, then you're ready to go. So what we'll do is the first part. So for the setup, we purl the front and knit the back. And all that means is we're going to sew through this front needle stitch as if to purl. And we leave them on. See, in brackets it says leave. So in case you're wondering whether you need to pull them off, you do not. And then on the back row or back needle, you're going to insert as if to knit. So right in here, and then pull that through. Just make sure you're not catching it around your front needle. So we'll just go like that. And then you can give it a little tug, tighten it up a bit. I should have said as well that usually when I'm closing my toes, I have about 6 to 8 stitches per needle. So 12 to 16. So depending on if it's a small ladies or a men's sock will depend on how many I have left. Okay, so next part for the front, it says knit off, purl leave. So what that means is you're going to insert your needle in the front as if to knit, and because it said knit off, that means we're going to slide it off the needle. And then the next part said purl leave, so we're going to insert as if to purl, except we're going to leave that stitch on here. So then I'm just going to pull this out a bit so that it doesn't accidentally get pushed out. Next row, purl off, knit, leave. So we're now on the back needle, so we're going to purl and then off, so we can slip that one right off, tighten it up a bit, and knit leave just means we're going to insert it as if to knit, and I'll do it a little backwards just to make it easier to see, and then pull through, and then we leave it on there because it says knit leave. So then you're just going to repeat those two until you're out of stitches. So you'll only have 2 stitches left at the end, and then I'll show you what to do with those. So I'm going to continue on with this until the end, and then we'll show you how to sew it up. So now again, we're on the first one, which is knit off, purl leave. So you're going to knit off. You'll see this can go quite quickly after a while. Purl leave, and then purl off, and knit leave. Whoops, and I just slipped that one off. So you can see why it's important to make your needles a little bit longer when you're working. Okay, so now I'm at the very last 2 stitches. So what I have done is I have a knit leave on the back one from the back row, and I have a purl leave left on the front from this second last row. So what I'm going to do now is I just do the off part of the rows now. So I'll knit off on this front one and remove that needle, and then I will purl off on the back one and remove that needle. Then what I do is I turn the sock inside out, and I pull this tight and put my needle through to the other side. And see if we can get in here. So you'll see you have this very tiny little line from doing the Kitchener stitch, but it's actually very soft, so it doesn't at all interfere with the person's foot in their shoe. Now with this here, all I'm going to do is weave in my ends. I honestly am always happiest if I still have a knot at the beginning, just in case. They get worn a lot, and it makes me happier for my peace of mind, but you don't need to use a knot if you don't want to. So it's just teeny tiny. You can't feel it even creating a bump or anything like that. And then I just weave in as I regularly would. So I go forward the one way and for a couple stitches, 4 or 5, and then I return the other way for 4 or 5 stitches, and then always come back. So if you've gone back and forth 3 times, so I guess back, forth, back, then it cannot undo. And I have made tons and tons of socks and given away tons and tons of socks, and I wear them all the time, and I've never had any undo. So that's as much as I can guarantee you, but I will give you my word, and hopefully you will trust me. So now I'm going to snip this. We're all done with that. And then I'll show you the right side. So that is what your Kitchener toe looks like. Isn't that pretty? So it doesn't even look like you stopped knitting at all. It just basically looks like you knit from the front around to the back of the sock. You have nice tidy edges here as well. That is the Kitchener stitch. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you do want a copy or one of these little keychains to put on your project bag, you can get them at Burning Impressions, like I said, and I do have a limited number available in my shop that I will gladly include with a sock yarn purchase for you. Just let me know if you're interested in one, and if I still have some, I will gladly put one in your order for you. Thanks very much. Please do me a favor, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up on the bottom, and I'd love if you subscribe to my channel so that I can add some more videos that will hopefully be helpful to you.